Hmm. Watching my face on the computer screen, I realize I need to trim my beard. This looks ridiculous. Unfortunately, you're not here to discuss my beard, even though I would need some advice, apparently. You are here to listen to my ramblings regarding my reread of Reaper's Gale, Book 7 of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Now, after my first read, I ranked this book on the lower end of the Malazan spectrum, somewhere like lower mid tier or high low tier, if that makes sense. But this time, I mean, this book really grew on me this time, and after finishing it, I felt it was a contender for my favorite in the series. This is where the Cripple God's plans to start to unravel, and the Malazans really start to take the initiative. I mean, they did go on the offensive in Seven Cities in the previous books, but only as a reaction to what the Whirlwind was up to. Now they try to take the initiative and go to try to overthrow or at least weaken the Eater, which are of course controlled by the Cripple God via Rulad. So I really like this book this time around, despite one of my least favorite storylines of the entire series being present, that being the storyline of Udinas and Fear and that gang going on a fetch quest to find the Finnest. Everyone having their own reasons for doing so, which eventually ends up in a rather brutal showdown at the end. I hate Clip, obviously, and I still don't understand who he is or why he was sent to guide them. Seren Pedak, a character I really like, but I have no idea what's going on with her, and with Mokra starting to, strike up a conversation with her for some reason, because that's something that Warrens can do apparently, and give her some magic powers. I still don't understand the thing with with a place where they all end up, with Udina's son and all of that. Is it a warren within a warren, or a dream world within a warren, or a warren within a dream world, or what the hell is it, and why? It's never really clear to me. And a lot of confusion regarding the Imas there as well. Probably may have been clearer if I'd paid more attention, but obviously I didn't, even though it's a second read. But that's why Malazan is so damn fun. There's always new stuff to focus on and try to figure out. I listened to a discussion somewhere, may have been the 10 Very Big podcast, where they broke down that showdown in the end, where everyone ended up in this warren or whatever it was, and why, and who wanted to do what and why. Yeah, just what the hell happened. And they did a very good job of it, but I don't know where they managed to pick up on all of that information as they read it. Another thing in another storyline that I absolutely did not understand is that attack from the attack on Sandalath Durkalath on that ship. Never understood why her antagonist hated her so much. I mean, it's in the subtext somewhere, but it's never. I mean, it seemed to come from nowhere. Really, it's kind of confusing. But by the way, Sandalath Durkalath, maybe one of the best names in the entire fantasy genre. And her husband makes some jokes about that as well. I seem to remember. Anyway, despite those minor negative, when I say negative, it's just stuff that I don't fully understand, which is completely okay for a Malazan book. So still, well, despite the confusion, I enjoyed this book a lot, and way more than I did the first time around. With the benefit of a reread is that I know the people I should be paying close attention to. So, for example, Jan Tovis, I kind of disregarded that storyline the first time around, and I ended up paying for that later on in the last two books when I had no idea what the hell was going on. Same thing with all of the movements of various bone hunter squads throughout the Leatherous continent. Great, by the way, to be back in Leatherous in general. The Fate of the Eater is I mean, it's such a great story, and I have nothing to add there. You know, being trapped in the system they conquered, that's something that's been discussed at length, but it's really, really nice. Beak, of course, a fan favorite, my favorite. His story hit even harder knowing what's to come. This is one of my favorite storylines in the series. I love how Erikson just throws him in the mix, letting him have this full character arc, and then his story ends. That's it. I mean, in the midst of this long epic saga, this tremendous story is just a throwaway story that, hey, let's put this in Reaper's Gale and never see him again. Of course, he has a role to play, but I mean, most authors would come up with the idea of Beak and have him as a main protagonist for an entire trilogy of books, and that would be like an epic of its own. But not Erikson. No. I have mentioned the book club we have at work at some point, right? Well, we have a book club at work focused on sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and this month it's finally time for me to introduce the gang to Malazan. So we'll be reading chapter 2 from Guardians of the Moon, which is the Siege of Pale aftermath, and the story of Beak. So I copied all the Beak sections and put them into one file. So that'll be interesting to hear their thoughts. It's just to get them, give them a taste, get them an opportunity to dip their toes in this huge ocean, which is the Malazan world. Anyway, I'm digressing, of course. Next point of issue. I appreciate the story centered on the Errant and Featherwitch in a completely new way now. Still not 100% sure on the Errant's motivations, but it's rather amusing that he, for all these years, have been in the background making sure not to gather any followers, because then his followers would have power over him. And how Featherwitch, out of spite and scheming, decides to declare herself his priestess and screws things up for him royally. And well, of course, it doesn't end good for Featherwitch. Still, it says a lot about how the interactions between the gods and mortal work in this world. Some heavy hitters that needs to be mentioned, of course, is Karsa and Icarium. Karsa in the series is a bit hit and miss for me. It's high and lows. I really like his arc in the first section of House of Chains when we're introduced to him. In Bone Hunters, not so much, but that's also one of my least favorites in the series. But now he's growing on me again, and it's obvious this time that much of my enjoyment of Karsa in this book comes from his interactions with Samardeb, which is a character that I'd forgotten how much I enjoy spending time with her on the page. It's a great character. Karsa's interactions with Icarium is also really good. They don't really interact directly that much, other than that final scene with that kind of stare down. Love that, but they are aware of each other's presence. Maybe especially in particular, Karsa is very aware of the presence of Icarium and how that kind of impacts stuff. It's rather minor in the big scheme of things, but I like reading it. Where Icarium ends up, this is I don't remember too much from my first read about where Icarium goes from here up until the very end. So this is still a bit of a mystery for me, but at least I tried to keep track on the information that we got about all these old artifacts and how they've been found and so on. Still a big question mark, but hey, it's Malazan. So when you encounter a question mark, you sit back and enjoy the ride. I really enjoyed this particular ride this time around. That's all for now. See you in the next one. Go kill a mule.